Shoulder dance came to you when you were itching to get back to work after spending a bit of time to focus on your family. What was it about this particular character and Jay's script that resonated with you?
I think, when I first read Shoulder Dance, there was something about Ira's story and I don't know, where he was in his life and starting to sort of like question all the choices that brought him to where he was. And I don't know, there was something about that journey that I just really connected to. And I think as somebody who kind of like stepped away from the industry, I never like fully stepped away, but like stepping away to focus on my family. And then like entering my 40s, I kind of had this moment of like, whoa, like I don't know this moment, but like in my life, I was starting to question: Did I do the right thing? Should I have like focused more on career and like start?
Mm.
And so I don't know. There were a lot of those like midlife like bubble like questions starting to bubble up, and even though Ira like took a very different path than I did, there's still I think a lot of those sort of like life themes that I really related to on like a deep sort of like human level. And I just felt like that was a story that I could really connect to. And I think also it was definitely a more mature role
Mm.
than a lot of the roles I played in the past. Especially like coming out of Kyle XY, and even though it was like a decade after, I mean, even like that was in my 20s, like my early to mid 20s, but even like the roles kind of like following that sort of felt very similar in their like life, like where they were in their life.
Mm.
And so to like go away and now bring all this life experience from the decade in between, I was able to, I don't know, I think approach things and like, I don't know, discover or explore just a more mature role and something that I hadn't got to do. So it felt like the right opportunity for me to sort of like come back into it.
Yeah, you're fantastic in this. When your character's childhood friend reemerges in his life, like you were saying, it opens a lot of old wounds and many unanswered questions. So you brought so much nuance too. As an actor, how did you create the space for yourself to dive into that vulnerability and that emotional journey?
I was super fortunate that I had an amazing like cast to be able to play with, and we all, I don't know, we're able to really like immerse ourselves into this story in a way. And there's only, there's four main lead casts. We have some other like, great supporting characters too, but
Yeah.
between Taylor Fry, Maggie Gia, and Rick Cosnet and I, it was the four of us, and we were always on set together. We had a couple like like dinners and rehearsals and things where we just got to really like get really like deep and I don't know, like just explore all the dynamics between the four of them. And so that allowed us to create a safe space where we could just kind of get messy and try things and fail and try things and succeed. And I think so that just in that environment that Jay had created, and Jay was the same way. He was all about like, let's just see what happens and like let's
Mhm.
explore and like maybe there's something on the page, but what we find in the actual doing of it might be something even better. And so that environment was created from the beginning, and it allowed us all to really, I don't know, connect and form a chemistry that like allowed us to have that space.
So often in filmmaking, you're shooting things out of order, but with Shoulder Dance, you shot linearly, and which was like allowed for that intimacy and that discovery to be created on screen. How different is that filming experience? And how did that allow you to build those different dynamics with your castmates, with all of whom your character has different relationships with?
Yeah, well, again, so because it was the fourth, we shot this, like right after everyone was coming out of COVID. So it's still, I think a lot of productions were still trying to think like, how can we keep this as contained as possible? Because COVID restrictions were super tight. So we were on one, like we had one set, we shot it in a house, and there were a couple other things that took kind of place around, but everything primarily was in this house. So we were able to shoot in order. So again, like those characters' journeys we were, we might rehearse out of order or discuss a scene that's later, but we were really able to like sort of live that experience in order, like almost similar to, I mean, I guess not really theater, but a play, and that like
Mm.
like our bodies experience that story for the most part in chronological order. It's crazy though. We actually got shut down because of COVID too. So it
Oh,
was, oh man, it was quite the experience. But even that, I think, like added to it because that was a really traumatizing thing to happen. I mean, I don't know, I'm being sort of dramatic maybe, but um because we had like we were like on such a journey and we had so much like creative
Mhm.
momentum, and then Maggie and I got COVID, and we were like the only two people in the entire production. Nobody else, nobody from the crew, nobody else in the cast, but the two of us got it. And so to like, it was just a weird sort of like emotional roller coaster of like, oh, we're responsible for shutting this down. Are we going to come back?
Mm.
Are we not going to be able to? We just like destroy production? Are we going to be recast? Like all these things sort of like creep in after you've already invested so much. But then like coming through and going through that together, I feel like when we came back to it, even added so much more like emotional electricity to the story because we felt like we had um like been through something and we had something like so much more now on the line to sort of like to
Mm.
tell, like to tell so much more responsibility to tell these stories.
And that translates to the performances that you all gave. And you've worked on projects of all sizes. What is it about independent filmmaking that excites you as a storyteller and an artist?
I love independent filmmaking because you really you get to, I don't know, you get, I mean, there's more sort of like creative input in a way that a lot of times on bigger productions, there's just not. But when your director is also the writer,
Yeah.
um you have the time to explore the scenes or explore the relationships and the dynamics between the characters. And I also think, in independent film, it's nice because you just shoot faster. So there's a lot less like sitting around in downtime. There's a lot less doing, 50 takes. So a lot of the time, like what's captured on camera is like a real experience. It's not something that you're having to remanufacture every take.
Mm.
You go again and go again and go again. And you're like trying to emotionally exist in this place for 8 hours where it's no, you shoot that scene, you like have this human experience, and then you move on just like you do in life. I mean, you're still like turning around and other takes and stuff, but it happens so much faster, so your body, I feel like, experiences the story in such a more like spontaneous and exciting way because you really don't know what's going to happen. And it forces everybody, I think, involved too to really work in a way that's create. Everybody has an
Yeah.
ownership for a project that's different. Like in a studio film or like a bigger budget, like everybody has their role and you do that role, and you do your part and kind of like stay out of the way. Whereas in an independent film, everybody has such an ownership and everybody is there to just produce the best project possible. And they want to, if I have to help move a piece of furniture or something. I mean, like technically, I don't know. Like, there's jobs, and you can get trouble if you're doing things that are not your job. But the point is, you like. But the point is, like, everybody is willing to like chip in because they just want to make something great because they're not there for the money. You're
Yeah.
there to tell the story.
Is there an added sense of pressure knowing that you're only going to get a few takes, or does that give you more freedom as an actor?
Um, I think it can kind of be both. I think there's an added pressure because sometimes you you do a take or two, or maybe you get two takes, and the director's like moving on, and you're like, but wait, and there's that sort of like insecurity of like, but was that it? Like, did we actually capture it? Or I feel like maybe I was better in rehearsal, or
Mm.
so. But I think ultimately you just have to give over to the experience of what it is. You can't dwell on it because then you just make yourself crazy, and you just got to go. You have to trust in your process. You have to trust your castmates. You have to trust your director and everybody else on the crew. And again, if you have the right group of people, you feel safe to do that. And everybody has the film's um, best interest at
Yeah.
heart. So everybody wants it to be good. So if something is not quite right, we're going to go again. It's just you don't have the security of, okay, I'm going to do this 15 more times.
Yeah.
But sometimes that's for the better. Even in big budget films, they talk all the time that they'll do, 15 takes, but it was the first take that they went with. And so you just have to trust the process and trust your instrument.
Yeah. And your instincts. And correct me
And
if I'm Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but you've gone out now to work with Jay in another film. What made this film so special that you wanted to collaborate with him again on another project?
The environment that Jay created was so special and like magical, and it really was like a lightning in the bottle such
Mm,
circumstance that I felt safe to do another project with him because I felt like, okay, if he this is the sort of the landscape that he's going to create, then I'll be able to come into this and like add my point of view or like add whatever it is I can bring to the table, and it will be respected and it will be embraced and celebrated that we can all come together to just try and create something meaningful. And that's, I mean, there's the project that I did with him afterwards was a documentary. So I was working as a producer on this
yeah.
one, and that was a cool experience too because I mean I'd never worked on a documentary, but again, I got to work with somebody that I know our personalities worked well together. I knew that we had a good, we worked well together. We had a good chemistry, and so I just again like it's a moment where you just have to sort of like trust. You just put your trust in the process.
And as you were saying earlier, this is a more mature role for you. Was there a scene in particular that you're really excited for audiences to see? What was the most challenging one for you to film?
I don't know if there's any one particular scene. I just think in general, I think that it's a very relatable story, and especially for a lot of the people who sort of grew up um, exploring their sexuality in that way or questioning, you know, like what are these feelings? And I don't know. I can tell you, like growing up a gay kid in the theater, like a theater kid in high school, there was a lot of that of like, you know, like sort of having crushes on the straight kids or the other kids in the theater department and not
Mm.
understanding what it is. And you know, I feel like a lot of us like, go through that. And so I just feel like it's a really relatable and authentic story that I'm excited for audiences to get to experience.
And like you're saying, you recently got into producing. Have you found that the work that you've now done behind the camera has now influenced the way that you approach your work on screen, or vice versa?
100%. So this is actually, I also recently produced a passion project of mine called Sheepdog
Yeah,
with Stephen Graham. And that was definitely the biggest. I mean, I did that before I did the documentary film. But to view things from that side of the camera, I think was very eye-opening. And you know, like it's just funny, you know, like as actors, like our job is to like to show up and have an emotional experience and bring characters to life, right? But it's hard to understand all of the chaos that's happening behind that. And a lot of times in
mm,
productions, they try to, you know, sort of like protect the actors from that experience because they want the actors to they just want them to be focused on like what their responsibility is, and you know they that can be distracting for an actor to be, you know, sort of like sense that vibe. but but even now, like having acted and produced in the same film, I think that it's you just have such you I've gained such an appreciation of how much work it is to get a film made. Especially now, you know, independent cinema is just so challenging because there are just so many movies and the market is just so strange. And you know, like, what used to go to festivals is now like not going to festivals, and what I don't know, and just trying to raise money and like what can make money and the streamers. It's just such a crazy landscape, and it is so hard to get a movie made. Um, so that's actually like, thank God that like during this whole strike, that there was the one thing that the union that SAG did give out the or issue the interim agreements, because I just feel like independent filmmakers, they did not
yeah.
deserve to be shut down. Like it's so hard, and people invest their like savings and all their work and you know into getting a film made, and they really are. They're like such a labor of love, and it really is like I don't know. I have just so much respect for filmmakers because it really is like you have to really have a passion and a love for storytelling and filmmaking.
Yeah, so many of the great films I've seen this year are independent films, and you've also said in previous interviews that you're excited for this next chapter in your career. What's next for you, and what's left on that bucket list?
Yeah, so I mean, Sheepdog is definitely. I think I'm excited. You know, we've locked picture and we've gone through most of post production, and the film's almost ready to go. But I'm excited to share that film. because that's also a very different role for me. I played a combat veteran returning home,
Mm,
and his struggle reacclimating to society or to civilian life, and again, like definitely a much more mature role as well. So I'm just excited to keep exploring things like that. Hopefully do some more producing. But right now, Sheepdog and then the documentary are the sort of like the next two projects. And now that we're coming out of the strike, hopefully we'll have something soon, some other
yeah.
projects coming up.
Hopefully we'll see Sheepdog on the festival circuit next year. I got one final question for you. Both you and your husband are creatives in this space, and you have two wonderful children. If they wanted to follow in your footsteps, what advice would you give them?
Um, Continue just creating. I would just say continue creating, doing what you love, and honing your craft. I mean, those are just the two biggest things. And I think that I wish I heard more of when I was younger. I think
Mm,
when I got younger, or when I was younger and like sort of had started having success, I got so caught up in the distractions of Hollywood because I thought that was part of the game. I just didn't know, like, I didn't know better. I was like, oh, going to red carpets and parties. Like, I thought that was the job naively. And instead of a lot, I wish I had spent that energy focused on, just continuing to like hone my craft. So I think it was like to
mm.
not get distracted, just keep creating, doing what you love, and just work hard and really work hard. But I wouldn't be mad if I could. I feel like Blue. I feel like my husband wouldn't love it if my kids went into the industry. But I wouldn't mind it. Like I love, it's a really tough industry. But it's also super rewarding. And I
Yeah.
that it's a sort of like non-conventional creative lifestyle. I don't know. I wouldn't be mad if they did. But we'll see. They're young. Who knows?
Yeah.